Hi everyone, this is HKChess here, and in this video we're going to cover endgame number 3 of the book 100 Endgames You Must Know. So in the last endgame we covered what happens if the pawn was on the 6th rank. In this endgame we're going to cover what happens when the pawn has not yet reached the 6th rank. So there is a simple idea which can help you play these positions accurately. And that simple idea is if the strong king occupies one of the key squares, then the side with the pawn up can promote the pawn. So if the pawn is on the 5th rank, the key squares are the 3 squares in front of it. So if the strong king occupies one of these 3 squares, the side with the pawn up can promote the pawn. And it doesn't really matter which side has the opposition. And so it doesn't really matter which one is to move. So first we're going to cover how to play this if white is to move. So white has a couple of options. White can obviously play f6 right away, but you don't want to do that. You have to be careful not to push the pawn too fast, because you have to calculate what happens when your pawn reaches the 6th rank. So now if you push the pawn right away, your pawn is on the 6th rank, black can play king e8, and then as we already covered, in your pawn is on the 6th rank, you don't have the opposition, so you're not going to be able to promote the pawn. So these are the 3 key squares. You don't want to go away from the key squares, so the obvious option would be to play king f6. And black has 2 options now. Black can go king e8 or king g8. Whatever black plays, you're going to go the other way. So if black plays king e8, you're going to go king g7. And now you have secured the path for promotion, and black can literally do nothing. If black plays king e7, you're just going to push, and black can literally do nothing. So this is the idea. So now what happens if black is to move, right? So if black is to move. So if black is to move, black has a couple of options, 3 options. So if black goes to g8 or g7, you're going to play king e7 to secure the path. Obviously, black will try the more resilient option, king e8. Now, you're just going to push f6 because now you have the opposition. Your pawn is on the 6th rank, you have the opposition, and black cannot stop you from promoting the pawn. And as we already discussed, this is an easy win. So that's the idea. Next position we're going to talk about is this position. This is again pawn on the 5th rank, but this is a nice pawn. So again, rule of the square still is valid, but we have to be extra careful of the annoying stalemate tricks. So here you have white has a couple of options. White can go f8, e8, e7, e6, f6, king g6, and push right away g6. So first of all, we don't want to push g6 because then again a stalemate, right, if you push it. So that's out of the question. You obviously don't want to move away from the pawn, so these 3 options are just not really that logical to make, because the defending can just try and capture your pawn. You will make things complicated, which is not really what you want. So what remains is these 3 moves. So if you play king f8, you're not going to really achieve anything, because king h7, you again, we're going to go king f7, and then we again have the same position. You haven't made any progress, and it doesn't really make any sense to just repeat, because if you repeat 3 times, you will get a draw, and you don't want a draw in this position as white. So 2 options. The correct way to play this is by playing king g6, but this is not losing at all. We're going to cover that after we cover this. So obviously black has only 1 move. You're going to play king h6. The idea behind this maneuver is to get to these two squares to avoid a stalemate tricks. That's the idea. Now black has three options. Obviously, black doesn't really want to go this way because then you get this square and your path to promotion is clear. So black will try to avoid that. Now you're going to push, because if you push, your pawn will be in the 6th rank and you will have the opposition, so you're going to win this thing. And it's pretty straightforward. So that's the idea. So what happens if you play king f6? If you play king f6, black has two options. The more resilient option for black would be king h7. So if you play king h7, you do not want to push. You again have to get to the same position. If you push the pawn, you will lose your chance to win this thing, because once the black goes to h8, you do not have any move, because if you play king f7, again a stalemate, and you go back, you cannot make any progress. Your pawn is on the 6th rank, he will have the opposition, and you're not going to promote your pawn, so you don't want to push the pawn. And so you just want to go back, and then this is the same position as before. But if black somehow plays this wrong, you're gonna be able to win this thing, because now there is no stalemate trick. Now this is obviously winning. So that's the whole idea. Okay, so in this position we're going to talk about positions in which the pawn has not yet reached the 5th rank. If the pawn has not yet reached the 5th rank, meaning the pawn is on the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd rank, the key squares would be 2 ranks ahead of the pawn. So for the pawn on the 4th rank would be these 3 squares, and the pawn on the 3rd rank would be these 3, and the 2nd would be these 3. So obviously the pawns on the 4th and 5th rank would have the same 3 key squares. So in this position, white wants to occupy one of these 3 squares to be able to promote the pawn. There are obviously 2 passes to achieve this. One is king e5 and one is king d5. King e5 would obviously lose, because you would lose the opposition. So you don't want to, and you cannot progress any further, even by pushing the pawn. You cannot progress any further. No matter what you do, your pawn is on the 6th rank, you don't have the opposition, so you're not going to be able to promote the pawn. So the correct way to play this is king d5, king d7, king d6, king c6, king d8, king d6, and you wanna get to this square to protect this path. Black will try to attack the pawn, but now you have a wall in front of the king. These 4 squares are covered, so, and black has nothing. So this is it. Okay, so in this position, the pawn is on the 4th rank. 1, 2, 3, 4. The pawn is on the 4th rank, and black wants to get to one of these 3 squares to be able to promote the pawn. White has 3 moves here. White is to move. If it was black to move, it would be exactly like the last position we checked. Black would just get here and it would be no problem. But it's white to move, and it could get a little bit tricky. So if white plays king b2, black can play king b4, and black will get the opposition, and white cannot avoid black from promoting the pawn. So what we have here is the idea of a distant opposition. So white makes the move king b1. If both kings are on the same file and there are odd number of squares between the kings are opposing each other, and the side who doesn't have to move has the distant opposition. So now white has a decent opposition and can actually gain the direct opposition. So black cannot really progress any further. We can show it, and this is again the same position as we discussed in ending number 2. Pawn is on the 6th rank, and the kings are opposing each other, but white has the opposition, so black cannot promote the pawn. On the next position, we're gonna talk about an idea of a reserved move. So the pawn is on the 3rd rank. These are the 3 key squares of the pawn. The white king is already in one of it, but black has the opposition. So right now, white can actually gain the opposition back with the reserved move g4. Now white has the opposition, and this is just a very simple way to win this thing. Again, we talked about this before, and there is nothing to it. This is the whole idea of this endgame, and this is it. This is endgame number 3, and on the next video we're gonna cover endgame number 4, and that's it. Have a nice day.